Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Good Deeds No Investing podcast. I'm your host, Chris Seveny, along with Mr. Jamie Bateman. Jamie, how are you today?
Doing great. It's Friday. The sun is shining. It's going to be in the 70s, which is good for Maryland. So yeah, how are you doing, Chris?
I'm doing wonderful as always. I usually like to say the sun is shining and the birds are chirping to even add another level.
Yeah,
so
that's next level stuff.
Speaking of next level stuff, we're going to talk about some next level stuff today with Andrew Smith, who is joining us. Andrew is an asset manager for Labrador Lending, who is owned by no other than Mr. Jamie Bateman. So, Andrew, how are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to be here. Longtime listener, first time caller.
So, well, you got the benefit because Jamie gave you significant advance notice about
1 hour.
this. Yeah.
Which is pretty good compared to Steven.
Steven was like 15 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. 5 or 10 minutes the first time, maybe an hour the second time.
It's like the episode I did with Lauren where she's on the West Coast and we recorded like this time. So it's like 6 o'clock her time. And she's like, this is going to be video, is it? I'm like, no, we'll just record the audio, but I still record the video. And when I was just uploading stuff to YouTube, I didn't even bother looking or just upload everything. And then for like that week, it was like the most watched thing. And all of a sudden she was like, you posted it to YouTube. And like, she's still in her pajamas or whatnot and stuff. It was hilarious.
The best would be if you could automate that and then have her post it somehow without realizing it.
Well, we typically start each episode with what just happened or what's been going on this week. Jamie, I will, start with you and then Andrew and I'll go last.
Yeah, we got a bunch of things going on. We are launching our new fund June 1st. So Andrew's been very involved in that, but we're getting set up with Appfolio and laying out our marketing plan for that. But as far as asset management goes, we've got a couple of deals that we're exiting through REO and getting the properties listed. Some of the crazy CFDs that I've talked about before, one in North Carolina, one in Michigan. The one in Michigan was the mattress vomiting RVs in her yard. And so unfortunately, we're having to evict her. And so that's supposed to take place on Monday. And then we'll get that property listed. We've already got the one in North Carolina listed. So those are two of my remaining JV deals that I'm hoping to kind of put behind me. And Andrew, what else do we have going on? You probably know better than I do.
Mostly getting systems in place and ready for the new fund, preparing all the marketing, the new platform for investors and things like that. So mostly just setting up for that new fund and making sure things are lined up with all the assets. That's about it. I know that sounds like not a whole lot, but there's about 10 or 20 moving parts.
Yeah.
I was just going to mention that because in my membership group, Andrew, you were on this past week. We did a webinar on asset management and all the systems tools and everything that goes involved with properly managing, but not only managing, just the setup of things as you begin to scale. Yeah. And I think a lot of people took away from that how overwhelming it is, because managing one or two notes, it's okay, you can do it in Excel or whatnot, but once you start getting 10 or 20, it's a whole different ballgame.
One other thing I'm excited about is I got down to 3 servicers in the last week. Nice. So yeah, cut out. I don't have any loans at Allied anymore. Okay. So all of our loans are at BiFi, FCI, or Madison. So it's just less, fewer moving parts. So I'm excited about that. But Chris, I know you talked about before we hit record, you had was it an email that you were going to mention?
No, I had a phone call this morning. So for those that don't know me, I like to be a little competitive and so forth. I've been joking with a certain person about, racing them in a 5K, and actually it's moved to like 2 different people now. So on my, and it's amazing how like your phone listens to you or just reads your brain. So on my phone popped up this thing called future.co. And what it is basically it's like fitness training, but it's an actual live person who's basically remote, who you can hire as a fitness trainer. And actually, no, I learned this from the Morning Brew. If you don't subscribe to the Morning Brew newsletter, by the way, everyone, it's definitely worth it. And they had it was like 50% off for 3 months. So it's $75 a month where you get to work with a trainer and you get to select your trainer. And you fill out this questionnaire, which I went and did. And, basically I selected a guy who used to do a lot work with the Dodgers. And because I've had knee surgery, so I want somebody who was familiar with that and so forth. And, guys probably, around my age, probably 5 years younger. He's in North Carolina. So we get on the call this morning and we're just talking. And he asked what I do. And he heard real estate and his ears perked up. And I was like, yeah, actually I do mortgage notes. And the guy's just like, all of a sudden, the conversation just completely turned to like my goals of working out into mortgage notes, because over the last year and a half, he's bought like 5 to 10 doors down, his rentals. And he just heard about mortgage notes through Bigger Pockets and so forth. And then I'm like, oh, you'll definitely find me on Bigger Pockets.
Oh, yeah.
And then I mentioned the podcast and stuff, and he Googles goes on and so forth. So no, it's just interesting how, and he's like, oh, this is going to be a good relationship. I'm like, well, I'll teach you notes. You teach me, how to, work out and eat healthier and so forth.
Yeah, definitely.
But so I was just kind of like trying it because for me, like, trying to exercise and work out, and again, like I tried like the Nike app and these other apps that they show you how to do it, but I need somebody like they're barking in my ear. And pushing me, and that drives me, more. So I figured for, $75, try it out and see if it works. Great. If it doesn't, but just, first phone call and just how things go. So it's just interesting how everything,
pivoted
just full circle to notes and just, so we got another listener for the podcast, Jamie. So
nice. That's awesome. One of the, in my previous life for a brief time, I was a personal trainer. You might not be able to envision that, but and one of the things I realized, after having done it, for a while, was that it really is more about accountability. And it's not like your guy that you're going to be working with has some secret sauce that I'm sure he knows a lot, not putting him down, but it's not really about the workout program or the special exercise that you don't know about. It's more about accountability. And the same things. Yeah, motivating people, holding somebody them accountable, and that's where the community and having a mentor, just somebody to check in with, because it's and the same thing is true in notes or real estate or anything. It's so that's, and I found that to be the biggest benefit. I guess the biggest indicator of success for most people is they need somebody else to push them and check in with them. But
by the way, Jamie, I'm a little upset that on your what just happened, you didn't like mention that, you have a new podcast that with your latest guest must have shattered all these records and so forth for listens and so forth.
No, I've gotten some very positive feedback. Our new podcast is From Adversity to Abundance. We have 3 episodes out and got 3 more recorded. Chris 70 was episode number 3. And I've gotten some very positive feedback about, about all 3, but people really enjoyed your episode, how you opened up. And I mean, it's not easy to get vulnerable. And now hopefully people who've listened to that can understand a little more about the why behind what drives you, and how is impressive. You can kind of study that from other people. And for me, it's more about why. I mean, why do you work so hard? Why do you, cherish every day kind of thing? So I'm excited about the podcast, and I don't have, I'll check the numbers. I know you were still trailing Mark Owens, which was episode 1, but the last time I checked, but it's early stuff.
You haven't sent me the link. Have you sent me the link of promoting it and everything? So
I'll do that after this, but
make a competition out of it.
And then
I swear right now, but we're child friendly here.
Well, maybe that's why Mark Owens got, he dropped some F-bombs, but what you said the name of your new podcast, what it's going to be, right?
Yeah. So this one again is, we're going to do a little rebranding with Good Deeds, and it's going to be called Creating Wealth Simplified. So we will definitely still be focused a lot on notes, but we're going to broaden it as well to talk about other aspects of, real estate and other investment options for people to create long-term wealth. And, it can be whether you're going to be active, a lot of people, discussing things about being active, also discussing things about just being passive and avenues to invest from that perspective, because it's very interesting as you start to broaden out to people outside of real estate and the passivity side of things to get an understanding for what they look for. And most of us think, because we deal, in our own inner circles with people who are like us, and we think people are expecting like, oh, these double digit returns and everything else, and the high flying risk of certain types of deals. We're far few. It's very, we're the minority in that. Most people, if you can get them a mailbox money on a monthly basis, that they can put trust in you and appreciate you doing the work and them getting some benefit for it. When you look at, most people kind of prefer that.
It goes a long way.
It goes a long way, but most of us, because we are in our Facebook groups of all trying to grow and be entrepreneurs, we sometimes forget, we're such a small percent of the population, and just go back and look at everyone you went to high school or college with. How many of them are entrepreneurs? How many of them are working W-2 jobs right now, put money in their 401k and realizing, well, wait a second, what else can I do? Or, a lot of them, and I have one friend who jokes that he likes to live vicariously through me because of, the investing side. And he's now starting to invest and he's doing very well in investing as well. But, a lot of people, because they don't have the time, especially with family life and so forth, to do some of the things that we do. So,
yeah, really quickly, and then we'll get into the main topic. I had a call yesterday with a high school friend who reached out and just wanted to chat about notes. And I'm essentially coming in blind. I haven't talked to this guy in years, but I don't know. I'm pretty sure he's a successful professional going into this conversation. But I don't know if he wants active, passive, if he understands notes. But point being, through this conversation, we covered a ton of ground. But it was like, to your point, Chris, I was reminded that not everybody even knows there's such a thing as a self-directed IRA, or understands kind of the pros and cons of notes as compared to rental properties, or how you can be an active or passive note investor. So yeah, it is good to step back and get the perspective of the masses, I guess. So what we were looking at talking about today, what we're going to talk about today, is surprises awaiting new note investors. So we thought we'd talk to Andrew, who's been patient for the last 10 minutes. So a little bit of background context. Andrew reached out to Chris and me to see about kind of working in notes, and we'll let you tell your story, Andrew. But I wanted to bring him on because although Andrew hasn't bought his own note himself yet, he's heavily involved in the day-to-day operations of Labrador Lending and our new fund, the Integrity Income Fund. So I think, Andrew, you probably got a unique perspective, different than even Chris's and mine, but definitely different than someone who's never bought a note or never been involved in the business. So we'd like to get kind of from you what's surprised you. What did you expect 3-4 months ago versus how it actually is so far. So before we get into that, give the 1 minute overview of who you are and your story.
Sure. My name is Andrew, and most recently, I've been working at software companies as a product manager. And the last one I worked at, we delivered an independent or a software dashboard for financial management for independent financial advisors to help their customers look at the funds they have and analyze the performance. I was in charge of the alternative investments side of that piece of software. And I saw a lot of hedge fund and private equity and real estate deals and things like that. So that led me down the rabbit hole of, what are these alternative investments? And they're not correlated to the, S&P 500 or publicly traded things. And where do they fit in a smart asset allocation model and things like that? And then had a little bit of a life challenge. My wife was diagnosed with late stage cancer. So we got, the pandemic was bad for everybody I know, but we got sort of a 1-year head start on that with chemo and surgery and radiation. And then the pandemic broke out. And so just sort of looked at life and kind of wanted to do something different. Instead of designing the software, I kind of wanted to move to more of the user side and get more involved with alternative investments, and listened to the podcast. And Chris and Jamie seem like really great note investors. And so I reached out to them, and now I'm part of the Labrador lending team working on the assets we have in the new fund. And it's a pretty exciting space to be a part of. And I like it a lot.
Truth be told, when I think Chris, we were talking about your resume, and I was not looking to hire anybody at the time. And, but I kept coming back to it, and it was like, this guy seems really smart. I don't want to miss this opportunity. So, and now you're definitely picking it up very quickly. So, if I'm not careful, you'll work me out of a job.
I was gonna say I'll pay him double. Come on over. So I'll let you train him, learn everything. Then it's kind of like the W-2 world. Today, you bring somebody on board young, you train them for 3 years and stuff, and all of a sudden they get the phone call for 50% more, and it's like what do you do?
This episode is not going well for me so far.
No, I'm sticking around for a while. I'm really excited about the new Integrity Income Fund that's coming out in June. So we can talk more about that later. But if you want to talk about a couple of things I've noticed, from
what's been one of the biggest surprises to you so far?
So coming from a world of publicly traded investments and brokerage firms where everything's computerized, if you buy I think a lot of us know this, but if you buy a publicly traded equity, the brokerage tracks everything from the cost basis to the distributions, whether they're reinvested or deposited in your account, any corporate actions like the proxy voting, it's all online and it's all tracked and it's all part of one system. When in note investing, I've noticed that there are so many moving parts and they're in separate systems, and it's very manual, like force place insurance. If you have that, sometimes the servicer handles that, and sometimes you have to have your separate policy and you have to track where they're at, or they have homeowners insurance. If you're doing a loan modification, all that's a very manual process. You have to initiate that and track that and see where that is. Recording all the documentations for whether it's a land contract or a note and mortgage, all of that is very manual to initiate that, follow up on that. So it's a pretty manual space that requires a lot what
I thought it was just passive mailbox money, and you can do a bunch of JVs and then you retire in a year. I thought that's what it was all about.
Well, if you invest in a well-run fund, it is a passive investment, but the people inside the fund are working every day, responding to emails and tracking down things that need to be wrapped up to make sure that capital is preserved and all sorts of rules are met.
And one of the challenges that Jamie and I saw was based on just what you just said. There is so much, stuff you can't automate, and basically moving parts like that. That's where, and a lot of it is, some of it's by a servicer, some of it's not. Some servicers do A and B, some do B and C, some do A and C. And that's where Jamie and I were like, okay, enough is enough. Like, kind of invest in a servicing company that does A, B, and C. Like, they're handling force place insurance. They're handling the taxes. They're going to handle the recording. They can handle the loan mods. So it's at least, something that, from a management perspective, you can still, manage or outsource, but everything still has to flow through that servicer anyways. So if it's something that you can get them to do, it's so much better. And the other thing I just want to mention that you touched upon too, like you mentioned, everything, the distributions and stuff gets run through a lot of these other systems. As Jamie scaled and I scaled, so like Jamie's using Appfolio now and so forth. This, as an investor, this is one of the, and I've mentioned this probably on 5 other podcasts, one of the biggest things you should ask if you're going to invest with somebody is, what does your reporting look like from a, transparency and financial perspective? How do you report financials? Because if they can't show you how they're paying people, then they're probably not paying people, So especially if you're doing JV deals, as you get to the fund level, typically most people, if they're raising the money, have, gotten to a place where they probably are doing a better job. The JV level can definitely be more hit or miss with the investor, depending on their experience. So that's one thing at that JV level. Again, make sure you ask them, how do you report to me? What's your, send me a financial statement of what you send me. And if they can't, then don't invest. Plain and simple.
That's great advice.
All right. End the podcast there.
Yeah. And one of the other things I've noticed, borrowers, there is a wide range of ability to communicate with borrowers, because I'm a homeowner. My wife and I, we're on our second or third primary residence as homeowners. But and when I get papers from the bank or the insurance company, I proactively and promptly deal with it, because this is the roof over my children's head. We don't want to mess that up. But a lot of borrowers, hard to connect with, even if we're trying to do a good deed like a loan mod to get them out of a land contract and into something where they can build equity. Hard to communicate with it. If there's support programs because of COVID impacts that are dispensing funds at the state level, we're trying to connect with them to say, hey, there's money available to you to help pay your bills, and no response from the email, or no response to a paper letter. It's really, it's tough to understand, and it's tough to deal with.
Right. It is. And we all come into this space trying to do good deeds, like you said, and trying to help people. And that's really a big motivator for a lot of people who become note investors, myself included, trying to have that social impact and the positive impact. But yeah, it's like, if there's no communication, and I think we talked about it on the David Garner episode, it's like you can lead a horse to water. It doesn't mean you should stop leading horses to water, but you can't make a specific horse drink. So, I mean, Andrew's talking about, we came across this HAF program, which was federally funded, a federally funded program that the states are administering for COVID relief for homeowners, and I think even renters as well. But Andrew really kind of took the ball and ran with it, and was very proactive as far as reaching out through the service or directly to the borrower, depending on the situation. And I don't know, have we had any actual like positive response even, or any borrower? I know we've had one borrower say, I'm filling out the application now. And a lot of states are out of money. It doesn't mean that it's all the borrower's fault, but yeah, it's like, we want to help you here.
Yeah, I think our response rate has been 1 or 2 bites out of a dozen or 15 that we've really tried hard through multiple communications channels to get a hold of. So, I mean, I guess that's better than a 0% response rate, but there's a lot of money out there. And yes, it does vary state to state for the delivery, because it's a state, administered program with federal money. So,
right.
But I was expecting it to be higher. Like, I was hoping for 50%, because there's money to pay your bills, and
and it would be,
borrowers are behind,
and it would be profitable for us as well.
Absolutely.
But just the one thing I'll say about that in general is, that's why these coupon interest rates are 8 to 10%. I mean, these are not, borrowers like we are. So it's hard to fathom. But my mom sent me an article the other day about CFDs getting more attention, and I replied that it's like, yeah, I get it, but at the same time, the article is framed like big bad lenders. Everyone who owns a CFD is bad, and we're just ripping people off. But it's like, well, okay, what do you want? Would you want to lend your own money to a borrower has a spotty pay history and poor communication, and just, it gets to the larger issues of educating people on personal finance and things like that. So I'm not necessarily blaming each individual borrower, but it leaves us our hands are tied. So
yeah.
I'm just more nervous that yesterday I gave you my social security number, and now you already know I'm a good borrower. So just, putting two and two
I told you that I already submitted the PPP loan application. So I should be getting a second edition on my house here shortly.
No worries. I thought you were going to just buy another property. One of the things I'll tag along with that, and because I know people close to me who, I'd say are similar, appear to be similar to some of the borrowers we work with. And when they haven't been forced, like, a lot of these borrowers have been living in their home for a long time, and there's been no ramifications on it. And at the end of the day, this money to them they make it think like it doesn't benefit them in any way, shape, or form because it's just going to somebody else. I'm wondering if it's like, why should I do this? Because I get no benefit, not realizing it's paying down your mortgage. But also, I think sometimes, and unfortunately, financial education in this country is awful. From that perspective, we can provide education on everything, but it seems, people how to manage your money. But that's a whole nother topic. We could go down that rabbit hole for a long time.
So you, Andrew, you pointed out, the manual, the high level of, I guess it's not as passive as it looks from the outside. A lot of manual tasks and processes, and then the lack of borrower communication or maybe personal responsibility or ownership of their situation, right? So you have a third one? Putting you on the spot.
No, those are my two big ones thus far. It's a little slower moving. One thing I'll say, it's a little slower moving than the public markets.
Yeah,
and I had a lot to learn coming in. So, and I thought there were a couple instances where property taxes were unpaid on some of these assets, and it was like, I was running around with my hair on fire. Almost.
You were definitely stressed.
Yeah, I was stressed. And Jamie's like, it's a couple years before it goes to tax lien sale, and I'm like, okay, we have a couple of years.
Basically, I'm like how Chris was a couple of years ago to me.
Yeah. And it's not like Netflix where you can lose 30% of the value overnight or something like that, or Facebook loses like $250 billion very quickly or something. It's not that. So the speed is a little different.
Speed is definitely different. So how does your experience so far? I don't know if we haven't really talked about this, but if you wanted to buy your own notes, 3-4 months ago, did you have the goal of buying your own notes?
Yes, and I'm still tracking on that path, but I want to learn a whole lot more before pulling the trigger.
Yeah. No, this is how you learn. I'd say you're way more further along than somebody who's just kind of taking some courses here and there. Chris, you're in the waiting room. Oh, I guess he got booted out.
Oh. Okay, you and I can keep talking.
Here he goes. Chris is back. Nice.
So, I don't know. My internet dropped. All I heard was that basically I was like Chris was.
Yeah, I was saying like Chris. Andrew was saying that he was kind of freaking out because borrowers weren't paying their taxes, and and I've been saying, well, we've got 2 or 3 years before it goes to tax sale kind of thing. And I said, this is how Chris was for me 2-3 years ago. I was actually surprised you didn't react there.
It froze. So, my brain, but it's interesting though, because you do get, as you go through this business, the first time like something negative happens, or like you get a notice from a county of like you didn't mow the lawn, there's a fine or something. Like the first time that happens, you're like, oh my God, and like you get stressed and like certain, getting real nervous and stuff. Now I get them. It's like, just get them and throw them in the pile. Because you've seen it so many times. So you just get acclimated to it.
Really only, this isn't an in-depth list, but there are only a few things that really are really bad. Of course you could get sued or something, but if your property burns down, you don't have insurance, that's bad. If you try to foreclose and you realize that you don't have a secured lien or enforceable lien, that not good. If you lose the property to tax sale and you didn't realize it. But other than that, I don't know, there aren't too many kind of major risk factors.
Yeah. And a lot of those are controllable.
Yeah.
The ones I would throw out there that are uncontrollable and that do kind of, they shake you a little bit is, I've known people who have had somebody murdered on a property. Or have borrowers who are in prison for that type of, doing that type, being convicted of, murder. I've had 2 borrowers who were convicted murderers. So one, now I'm not going to go into stories, but some of that times that type of stuff can, or like something tragic happens to a family, to me, that does shake you a little bit. And, sometimes you just need to, for me, when I manage those situations, it's, give them the time to, basically, especially if it's in something where they're in default. Again, there's the business side of things, but there's also the human side. Having seen, you know, most of us have lost someone close to us. The last thing you want during that time is somebody calling you basically like, where's your mortgage? Where's your mortgage payment? So sometimes it's like, hey, like, cool, tell service, cool it off for, 60, 90 days. So
Yeah,
those are typically the stuff that, can, as a business owner, can rattle you. And that's the stuff that is uncontrollable. So,
for sure. Yeah.
so Andrew, what are some of, as you've gotten also to know the vendors in the space, what, again, people probably come in, either with rose-colored glasses, or they've heard all the horror stories and are either thinking, oh, this isn't as bad as I thought they'd be, or wow, they are like, what people have said from, some of the vendors. And again, we don't need to name companies, but like generalities between, either legal or servicing and so forth. What are some of the things that, based off of your time in the space, your opinions, or some of the things that you've noticed?
Well, there's a variety of vendors you need to connect with. So I think that's new and interesting to me. And it seems like all of them, except the servicer you guys created, all of them were sort of like an edge case or not their typical customer, I think. For example, there's services that track unpaid property taxes. And I think it's mostly for big banks and things like that. So they're not really used to dealing with a fund that has, just a couple dozen properties. Insurance, I was pleasantly surprised. I've had, my experiences with homeowners insurance and car insurance and other types of insurance, but the forced place insurance, there's actually a vendor doing that. And I think they know what we're doing because, they allow us to get in and out of a policy on an asset pretty quickly. So that's pretty impressive. But a lot of these vendors, the note investor is not their first and foremost customer. So you're sort of an edge case or maybe an afterthought, or just using their services because they exist. But it's doable. It's nothing awful, but it's not like Amazon where everything is like, oh, perfectly made for you to have like one click and it just shows up at your door. It's not like that at all.
Yeah. I know you've been surprised at attorney management,
Yeah.
meaning us managing attorneys.
Yeah.
You view attorneys similar to when you're a kid, your school teacher.
Yeah.
Like, they're awesome. They do everything and they are just like awesome. And you think like attorneys, okay, they, gone to college for God knows how many years to get this degree and so forth, but they might be great attorneys, but are they great managers of the files and so forth? And, attorneys are somebody you really have to manage and chase down, because I think one thing also that people don't realize is, the attorney structure. You have the attorneys and you have the paralegals. And again, nothing, again, this by no means knock about paralegals. They actually do more work than the attorneys do. So that's more of a knock on attorneys. But I mean, a lot of these complaints and everything are done by the paralegals and reviewed by attorneys because they're all standard template forms. And if they got so many of them on their desk they're doing, especially today when things start to open up and they're understaffed because, more people are working from home and so forth, you have to stay on top of them and say, hey, did we get this complaint, filed, or, what is going on? Was the borrower served? If they're not served, are there time restrictions where we have to serve them or start over, or do we have to post it in the newspaper? There's a lot of that you have to manage and control, that it's not just, oh, I sent the file over to the attorney, I can sit back, relax, and just wait for them to get back to me. That is not the case.
No, not at all. Even though they're billing you by the hour, you still have to, I don't want to say micromanage, but encourage the process along. And you have to ask them what to expect in this particular state based on the condition of these documents and all the other factors that go into their legal analysis. You have to say, okay, is this a 2-week thing, or should I check back with you tomorrow? Or, you have to know what to expect and when, and then help move the ball along, because they have other clients, and just like they're busy professionals just like you, and they have other things that pop into their inbox and fires they have to put out. So you have to make sure that your fire keeps getting waved in front of their face so they deal with it.
Those are just excuses. I don't want to hear it.
I just love the fact that I need to get Andrew, like, to teach me how to speak, because he puts it in such a nice, beautiful picture that makes it sound so nice. To me, I'd be like, yeah, it sucks and this and that. But he caresses it and makes it, basically very well spoken compared to me.
So Andrew, I've got a question. What are some of the things that Labrador Lending does better than 70 Investments?
Ooh, that.
I can name 5 right off the top of my head.
Man.
You can take a pass on that. I was just kidding.
Well, it's hard. It's hard for me to compare because I haven't been on the inside. Well, I am in Chris's
membership group. I was trying to make you feel awkward and Chris like that competitive fire. So,
I think the teamwork and the development, Jamie's great at. I think Jamie and I click together because we're both fairly methodical. You're more like process driven people. And
Chris is like, where is this going?
Oh no, I already got my response set. So,
so it's hard for me to compare because I haven't worked day to day with Chris as much. So that's a really tough question for me to answer because I don't think I have enough information.
Yeah, if you're going to run, you could run for office at this point, I think.
So one of the things that I will say about myself is I do notice, like for me, I'll admit where I have weaknesses and so forth. And I joke with Jamie about that all the time. So like right now we're basically in like NFL free agent period. And like, last year, Jamie's doing the draft and so forth with bringing people on board and stuff. And I'm sitting there like, typical Patriots before last year, sitting here all by myself. I'm like, I can do this all by myself because, whatever. And then I realized, okay, I need to basically, getting a little too big, too busy, lose my edge. So I just had the free agent spending spree over the last, 3 months right now where, bringing in, Tyreek and, let's see, trying to get Debo on board right now. And, who's the third, and now bring in, who's the one in Tennessee there? That's
AJ Brown.
AJ Brown. So yeah, I'm trying to bring in Tyreek, Debo, and AJ Brown coming on board. So this year, the things that Jamie was doing better than me, we're going to blow right by him. So
to be clear, let's be honest, I've learned a ton from Chris and I still do. So there's a lot.
I hope people just realize the banter that we have going on right now is, all tongue in cheek and so forth. And,
No, I just thought that'd be funny. So anything else that comes to mind, Andrew, as far as surprises or are you turned off by note investing, or are there other things you enjoy more than you thought you would?
I enjoy it quite a bit because I feel like you put in the work and you get something for it. You get a steady stream of returns. You get a little more control over your investment outcomes, and the diversification benefits are still important, just like buying stocks or bonds. Having what I learned from Labrador is having just 1 or 2 assets might mean that those 2 assets are the ones that are going to foreclosure. So you do need to have a bigger portfolio, like Labrador has 27 or 29 right now.
In that entity.
Yeah.
We have 2 in one entity, just literally 2 loans, and they were both purchased as performing, either newly originated or reperforming, meant for cash flow. And let's say that those 2 loans are not producing a ton of cash flow at this point. So if you look at only that entity, that would be pretty discouraging or disheartening. But and that's definitely something Chris has taught me. It's a numbers game. It's a volume game. Yes, you could hit a grand slam with 1 deal, but you need to kind of scale to be able to have 2 or 3 deals go south and still be profitable from a portfolio standpoint.
And on the call the other night, DJ, who's in our group, was, we talk about that. And with the performing, you understand that you need some of those performing loans to also bring in some cash flow so you can manage your own personal finances on the ones that are in default a little better. So if you're, have all these foreclosure costs, it's nice to have some money also coming in the door and providing, some cash flow, so you're not cash flow negative every month.
Definitely. I mean, things like just software or whatever, just the way things have gone as far as subscription, the subscription model for everything, just Zoom or whatever else you're paying for. And to do whatever system you end up using to manage your notes. I mean, it's usually a monthly payment, and it's like, still need to pay
if the
that.
borrower's not paying, you still need the systems up and running so that you can manage the asset to the endpoint, even if there is a payout at the very end. You do have to float your daily operating costs.
Yep, definitely.
Cool. So, Andrew, what are your goals over the next 24 to 36 months?
Oh, wow. The what's your 5-year plan question? So
you're going to 10 to 12x your portfolio in the next
right.
12 to 18 months.
10x. That's the goal. Slow and steady wins the race is my goal. Diversification is one of the goals I'm after with my personal portfolio. Finding something I can be good at, to be honest with you, and then mostly getting the Integrity Income Fund up and running and raising capital for that. It's an evergreen fund, but we really want it to grow, and we want it to be a really productive entity for a lot of investors. And those are I haven't really thought to 36 months, but I feel like getting the fund up and running and getting some more diversification in my personal portfolio. That's going to take 24 months. Because, by the way, I do have 2 kids, so that's
I was going to ask when you're going to buy your first
kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking to do that after this summer.
Okay. So.
Gotcha. Yeah, I just with building the team, I think it's been helpful. I think initially one of the mistakes I made was bring everybody on board and everybody do everything, and it's challenging as a small business owner, small team leader, to be able to delegate. But I think one thing we've done well is Sandra is now managing the Integrity Mortgage Note Fund that Chris and I run together. She's doing a lot of that. She's not focused on really anything outside of that. And you're essentially focused on everything else. So that just popped into my head. I think that's helped us kind of, yes, you can help her out. She can help you out, but we've been able to kind of divide and conquer that way, which I think has helped us be able to launch the new fund and scale that way. But Chris, I feel like you should talk about your new fund since we've talked about ours.
No, well, we've got a new one. I still have to be a little bit hush on certain things from it, but
Got it.
We have some stuff that's coming down the pipeline. But we are, like I said, also putting, I joke about like the draft of free agency. We are putting a team together. I've got Lauren, who's on board full time. I've got one individual starting, basically like 3/4 time in May, and another person coming on full time in May as well. So we are getting ready to scale, to grow. And, it's interesting. We could almost have a whole conversation just on the dynamics of bringing people on, because you do have to bring on people who really fit, not only know what the note space is, but fit your mentality and style.
Yeah, the culture.
The culture. Because I don't know how anyone can deal with me, but so far Lauren's been able to do it, and so forth. But she's also, and again, very cynical. She's like,
really?
One night we were going back and forth on something, and basically she like dropped 2 mics on me. I was like, damn, and I just was like, oh, I'm going to bed.
We need to get her on. I know you had her on the podcast a while back.
Yeah. But. So, and actually is, I'll mention it again, that I think we mentioned last week, is Jamie's, doing his new podcast and so forth. Lauren is going to be the new host coming on board here sometime in the next probably 45 days. June 1st is when we're going to be rebranding that podcast and so forth. But, Jamie, I know will still be coming back for some guest appearances and so forth. And I still want to have that episode where we kind of have like Sandra and Lauren imitating both of us and so forth. I think that would be
great,
entertaining from that perspective. But, back to staff. I mean, you've got 5 people now, yourself and like 4 other people working for you, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've got Andrew and Sandra, and my middle name is Andrew. So I was joking. I think for a little bit there, it was only the 3 of us. So I joked that we only hire Andrews, but now we have 2 virtual assistants as well. One that's handling mostly marketing, and then we brought Jenna back, who's doing kind of administrative data entry type stuff. So yeah, no one is. I mean, I guess I'm definitely full time plus, but I know Andrew and Sandra aren't. No one else is working full time per se, but it's been a huge. Yeah, I'm really excited about the team as it is and in the future. So don't want to scale too quickly, but you gotta, if you're going to scale, you've got to leverage something that's not yours, other people's time, other people's money, both of the above, technology, something. So yeah, I'm excited. Andrew's been awesome so far. I wasn't sure like the first week or two if you were going to get scared, from basically all the things we talked about today. With, I mean, it's more work than it appears on the outside in a lot of ways, but I think we're getting better at streamlining things. So
and we're all working on the systems, and Chris, you've put out a bunch of great information on how to think about scaling things and streamlining, and how to manage time, both your own personal time and how to manage the fund's time. So we're actively working on that. We're constantly working with our software providers. Jamie found Appfolio, and I think that's going to be. I think investors are going to love that. Because that'll be our investor facing portal where they get everything from just fund updates to their K1s at the end of the year to looking at what assets are in the fund and managing their distributions and all the things. So we're constantly working on that. And I'm trying to think about how I work, because, I can be guilty of just, react to whatever's in your inbox. And then most of the day goes by and you're like, wait a minute, I didn't do the big things that I was thinking about yesterday. So just balancing that, like, we got to, support our teammates and listen to your boss, but, we all want to accomplish like big chunks of deep work. So just balancing that is just like real life and any other role. So
yeah, you're never done, but I think we made a lot of progress. Go ahead.
And Chris. It's interesting because like Appfolio, most people know it from more rental property, and rentals use it. And now they kind of came out with the new kind of fund syndication management, which I know Lauren's been talking with them because I know you've used them. Several other people use them, and it's heard a lot of good things. And it's affordable compared to a lot of other places would charge like $1,500 to $2,000 a month, where I think they're much more economical. And for me, I turned them off the first time because it's like a 3-step dating process with them. It's like they'll call you up to interview you before they show you the software. Then they call you to screen you again before they show you the software. And to me, anyone that knows me, my patience is not, I didn't have the patience. So after the first call, I'm like, either show me a software or I'm done. So
Andrew, I think I shielded you from a little bit of that. I don't think you saw the whole front end, but yeah, there's a process there.
This sales cycle, I am glad you shielded me from that. I can just show up and just deliver my opinion. That's the easiest job to have. Just like show up and be an armchair quarterback.
Yep, definitely.
Cool. Well, Andrew, final thoughts on this episode?
You have a note and bolt for us?
Note and bolt and a good deed.
Oh yeah.
Either or.
Let's see. Well,
I can go with the note and bolt first if you'd like.
Yeah. Why don't you go with a note and bolt?
Just popped into my head as you were just talking, which is kind of how most of these go. Loom. We use Loom for our team. It's Andrew's probably tired of hearing me talk about it, but I'm really trying to push it. It doesn't have to be Loom specifically, but that software in particular is one of the more popular ones out there for this purpose. So it's screen recording software that is actually interactive as well. So I can do a 5-minute video on, whatever, this is how to do this, or these are my thoughts on, like our marketing virtual assistant just put together the next week's calendar, next week of images and posts. And I can do a 5-minute review of my thoughts on those images and the captions. And I can get a lot more conveyed in those 5 minutes versus going back and forth over email or chat and tweak this, no, add this semicolon, So we've used Loom quite a bit, and I'm trying to push it even more for our team, because not only for a particular task, but I think it also helps the whole team see what the other team members are working on. And because we're in 3 different time zones, one which is 12 hours ahead of us, they're ahead, right?
Yeah.
That it helps, us work together that way and collaborate. So if you're not familiar with Loom, check it out. If you have more than one, if it's just you as a solo note investor, it may not be all that helpful, but it does help you to document your processes and collaborate. And I've found it to be beneficial.
And I'll second that, just in also working with external vendors, because I was typing an email about updating the website, and I'm like, that's
Right.
just a terrible communication path. So I made a little Loom video. I said, okay, move this section, take this out. And I feel like it was a pretty great way to communicate something that's very visual, very quickly without too much confusion. But as far as good deed, I think I'll rely on the homeowners assistance fund, working really hard to get in front of the borrowers, like, hey, we know you're behind, but here's some free money to catch up, and having conversations with them when one of them replies and says, okay, I'm working on the application, and just encouraging them to say, like, okay, let us know if you need anything. Your servicer is there to help if there's any documents they need to provide. And just keeping the conversation going and kind of encouraging them to finish it out, because it can be a daunting process. And a lot of times that's why things fail, because people don't have the time, the energy, the support. They're too busy working 2 jobs to be on some government website uploading photos for hours, or uploading documents for hours on end. So just encouraging them to keep going on that, and hopefully there's some benefit to them at the end of the line.
Yeah, that's a good one. Chris? He's blanking. Oh my God.
I've got 2. I'm just wondering which way to go. So it's like playing cribbage. Do I 15 to it, or do I double it up? So last 2 weeks, I have had 6 people file bankruptcy.
Wow.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yes. So, and not all of them were defaulted. Some of them were actually performing loans, but they, essentially looking at their cases, ran up a lot of credit card debt and other types of debt. So, just be cognizant of, making sure you kind of stay on top. But right now, there's a lot of people selling the idea of buying distressed debt that's occupied, that has equity, that you're going to turn out, you'll foreclose and you'll get all this equity on this property and so forth. Put yourself in that person's shoes. And I probably have said this 1,000 times on this podcast, but if it's a $200,000 house and they owe $100,000, more than likely they're going to file bankruptcy because of several things. One is the credit's already shot, so they can't go buy anything. If they try and go rent something, the rent is probably more than a mortgage, if someone will even rent to them. And they've probably been in that house for 10 or 15 years. Plus, it has the equity. Why would they give all that up to go live somewhere else? So, just be cognizant of it, because I foresee a lot of bankruptcies coming down the pipeline because of equity. Now, interest rates rising significantly over the last few weeks. People's ability to what they can afford on houses might cause some slight declines in house prices, but it's not just people's mortgages. Remember, people have car payments, people have credit cards. Some of those might be adjustable. A lot of this debt that we probably have for borrowers is probably adjustable, and with where rates are headed, it can get pretty steep on them. So just, be cognizant that I think you're going to start seeing a lot more of it, and you'll probably see a lot more notes that are in bankruptcy. So make sure you educate yourself on understanding how to invest on notes that are in bankruptcy, if it's something you want to do.
That's a huge need, I think, in the just note space as far as education goes. Can you, what's the difference between Chapter 7, Chapter 13? Can you foreclose with the loan that's in bankruptcy? Yeah.
I had a guy on, it was either in Bigger Pockets, one of these sites. Basically, what's it called when people on social media just continue to like harp on you or whatever? I forget what it is. Trolling me. Because the person asked the question, how do I do seller financing on a note and protect the borrower protect myself from being crammed down in bankruptcy. And I made a comment. I said, well, if it's a owner occupied first position lien, it can't be crammed down, but other instances, nothing you can do. And he's like, you can cram down a first. And I said, if it's a owner occupied, I'm pretty sure you can't. And that's what every lawyer said. And he's like, well, tell your overpriced lawyers they're wrong. So me being the type of person I am, I Google this guy and find out this person actually filed the Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And on his rental properties, because it was Chapter 11, through his entity, they crammed down some of those loans. So I said, no, me being me, I said, I replied back, I said, so are you referring to your personal Chapter 11 that your company filed that crammed it down? In that instance, yes. And then, but he made a comment like, though. Yeah, well, that's so. He made a comment, you want to bet $100? I said, I don't bet and stuff, but I said, I do listen to my attorneys. He made some like, oh, you're overpriced attorneys. But yeah, then I'm like, I made that comment. I'm like, this isn't owner occupied. And he's like, and he said, whoever said anything about owner occupied? My original post didn't say anything about me lending on owner occupied. I said, well, my post specifically, and I just ended up letting it go and so forth. But
yeah.
It's people who troll you, ask for help and so forth, just want to be assholes. There's my swear for this episode. So be it. But
Chris, yep. my note in bolt on that is never wrestle with a pig, because you both get dirty and the pig actually likes it.
Yep. Oh, I actually, so it's funny though. I ended up, basically the way I phrased it though, was in a way that was more asking questions like, okay, so educate me, show me, and I'm like, can you show me in Pacer where this exists, or show me this and so forth. I actually did take down the comment when I did, I posted it so he could see it about his personal Chapter 11, because I just want to take that little jab because I had to, but then I took it down because exactly what you said. I don't have time to deal with people trolling. Hey, look, I'll answer people's questions and so forth, but if they want to come back with some sarcastic, I may play, around, one or two rounds with them and stuff like that. But after that, I'm like, I don't care, so.
Too many keyboard warriors out there.
Oh my God, way too many.
So we should probably wrap this one up, huh?
We should. I'll let you bring her home.
Well, Andrew Smith, thank you for joining us. This has been awesome. I know if I gave you too much time, you just stress about it. So I'm glad I only gave you an hour.
How do Chris, people reach out to you, Andrew?
Andrew, yes.
Andrew at LabradorLending.com.
All right. Any other like LinkedIn? You're not.
Oh yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm like Andrew, or I'm Smith XYZ on LinkedIn. So it's hard to find Andrew Smith, and all the first 23 letters of the alphabet are all used up. So I'm Smith XYZ, I think.
And
why is Andrew Smith a common name?
Right?
I don't think we said it, but you're down in the Orlando area.
Yeah, I'm based out of the northeast suburbs of Orlando, Florida. So in the same time zone as Jamie, so that makes collaboration really, really easy. But yeah, down in sunny Florida.
Chris, any final thoughts?
Good.
All right.
Thanks for having me, gentlemen.
Absolutely.
No problem.
Thanks you, Chris. And thank you to our listeners for spending your most valuable time with us. Your most valuable resource. Let's edit that one out, Podetize. Thank you for spending your most valuable resource, which is your time. We appreciate it. And please give us positive ratings and reviews. Take care, everyone. Go out and do some good deeds.